Hello, my name is Dr. Andrew Callaway and I'm in the Department of Sport and Physical Activity, and today I'd like to take you through about how I've been using reference managers within a couple of my units, and then how we could potentially use that going forward throughout a degree. So just to start off, just to make sure we're all on the same page for what is a reference manager. A reference manager is a piece of software where we can create a database of all of the journal papers, books, conferences, etc., with PDFs attached. And then from that we can generate reference lists. So it's just a way of us managing our references, putting them all in a single place. Now, what I want to talk to you about today then is how we can actually use that. Now, to start off with, we need to go through which one do we choose, and then I want to show you how we could use it and some reflections on how I've used it and some learning points from that. So to start with, there's many different ones available. Some are online only, some work on Mac, some work on Windows. There are more than I've got on these slides as well. Now, the university has already made a decision for us in many ways, in that on all of our machines is EndNote. So EndNote is on all of our desktops throughout the university as part of the base package. There's also an online version which syncs together, so if we're off-site or on our own machines using our browser, we can actually look at the same references as well, and we can use that to also share with the students. There's also an iPad version, so if we were wanting to use just the iPad, we could use that as well. Now, one of the benefits of EndNote is there's a cite while you write function. So as you're typing in Word, it can look at the database and actually start to populate that reference list for you as you're typing away at your sentences. It is really useful. The library have also created a style, so obviously different journal papers that we might be writing for have different styles. Our library team have created a BU Harvard style. Now, it's not 100% perfect, but it's very, very, very good. Now, what we can do is, once it's created that reference list at the bottom of our work, we can turn that into plain text and then edit it as we need to. But one of the points I want to get over to you today is that perhaps sometimes, and this is by no means everyone, we focus too much on the generation of a reference list in terms of how we mark it, whether we put the dots and the commas in the right place, rather than how the students are using them within text. Because surely I think we would all agree that it's more important for students to develop depth and critical thinking around the use of the references, rather than how many or whether they can put dots and commas in the right place. So just to go through how I've used it. So within 2 level 6 units, I created different shared groups. One example here on screen is 200 plus references. Now within this was shared with the students. They all then went and created their accounts through the library, and this was shared with all of them. Now it takes a little bit of work to set up. You need to put together all of their I numbers and bits and pieces, but actually it's not too hard. You can generate most of that quite quickly. Once you share this, then they have all of the references that may be related to the unit or coursework. And in this example, we have students doing many different analysis of different sports. So over the years, I've collated different references that students have used, as well as ones that I've recommended, and put them together in here. Because within the unit, whilst literature searching is really important, I'd much rather that actually they spend time using those sources rather than spending time trying to find those sources. Now, overall, students found this useful. It helped them get to some of the literature quicker. But some of the things that came out were that actually we can't share the PDFs. So whilst I've got PDFs for most of these journal papers, the students can't see them. And that's just because of legal reasons for sharing papers. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't find them. So they just need to go on through My Search or Google Scholar and go and find those journal papers themselves and add them into their own reference manager. The other thing that came out was that actually at level 6, it was too late to learn this type of software. Now, whilst it might seem very useful to us, to some of the students we need to remember that actually software like this can be quite daunting. So one of the potential solutions that I thought of as part of this, and I don't necessarily have full control over it, but hopefully this will give us all some food for thought, would be that actually if we introduced this kind of software in level 4 in a research skills type unit, so that from there, for all of the units that the students are being taught, they can then start putting together a reference manager for all of the pieces that they're using. They can put all the PDFs in, they can put all the references, they can group them by unit. So having been taught this in a first semester unit, they could use that in Unit X here. So Unit X, let's call it biomechanics for the sake of argument. They can then use that to collate all their biomechanics references that then they might end up using as a follow-on unit in the second year. And then that might lead on to something that they do in their dissertation. Now, the benefit of this is that for each of the units that they're taught, it means that they can get their reference lists together quicker, that when they've gone to the next year, particularly if they've gone on placement, it's quite easy to forget some of this, so they can come back to that literature quicker. Potential benefits of us using this: it's easier for us to co-create with students. So if we want to publish with a student off the back of their dissertation, we need to update the reference style very quickly. Or we want to add in more references, then we can update the reference style within the written work very, very quickly using EndNote. It's easier for our students to then transition between years, but also if they want to go onto a master's or PhD, they've now got a database that's transferable with them to other universities or staying with us, which means that actually their reading, it's just easier for them. There's also potential that maybe we can get access to some of these. We need to look into this a little bit further, or get students to feed back to us on updated references. We can then add that into for our own units, and that saves us having to keep going through and update the lists ourselves. Overall, however, I think that this has a bigger benefit of, rather than us focusing, and I'm not saying we all do this, but rather than us focusing on the number of references or the dots and commas within text, that by allowing them to spend more time reading the work and making it easier for them to find their previous used work, that it should hopefully lead to deeper learning of the students, which is ultimately what we want. Thank you for your time, and here are some references within the library side, which should be of some use if you want more. Also, contact your subject librarian who will be able to help you with EndNote should you need it. Thanks very much for listening.